This section will aim to give you the social selling fundamentals. It'll also help you understand why social media is so important for the modern sales and marketing professional. And finally, be breaking down the different dynamics of what constitutes new versus old sales in a new decade. So why social media? You're on this course today, but what is the big picture and why is social media now so important for anyone who is involved in B2B sales and marketing? Well, it's Web 3.0. And for those of you that don't understand what the 3.0 means, is that essentially the evolution of web has gone through three critical phases. And we're now in the third phase. The second phase took place at the beginning of the millennium with the advent of email marketing and the explosion of search-based optimization sites like Google. And then obviously the first iteration was the advent of the internet in itself in terms of mass usage. This is the third shift. And the third shift is the social media shift. It's the biggest and latest evolution of how humans interact online. And social media is the vehicle in which that change is taking place. It's an absolutely huge change in the way the world works. I don't need to kind of reiterate this. Our whole world has changed because of social media, and that change is filtering down to B2B marketing and communications. Our customers throughout the world are engaging with LinkedIn and social media sites in general at an increasing pace every single year. The stats speak for themselves, and particularly now during the advent of the pandemic, people are looking for social media and LinkedIn for more intelligence, are increasingly using LinkedIn as a tool to prospect their customers. In addition to that, getting skilled on social media, having a proficiency on social selling is future-proofing your career. If you can get ahead now and really get a strong personal brand on LinkedIn, then you are protecting yourself and actually building a foundation for a successful digital profile, which will only help your career as you progress forwards. And then finally, having a good network on social media, particularly LinkedIn, will really build long-term value into your professional lives. You can actually find some fantastic individuals and insights using LinkedIn if you know how to use it effectively. I have found some absolutely incredible individuals from all the work we've done at Social Tree Global, and I think you can as well. And LinkedIn is a fantastic way of crossing borders. You can connect with people across the world. It has over 600 million users now, and it's a fantastic and really powerful tool, which is available at the tip of your fingertips on your mobile phone. And just to give you a recap in terms of the social landscape. So when we speak about social media, we essentially speak about two things. For most people, they view social media as public social media. So things like LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook posts. This is the public tip of the iceberg. But most communication actually takes place on something called dark social media. And dark social media is any social media which isn't public facing. So any peer-to-peer encrypted messaging network, such as Facebook Messenger, such as WhatsApp, such as LinkedIn Messenger. And what you can see here is that there is a dominance in terms of communication, in terms of data flows to dark social media. So people are increasingly using private messaging platforms to engage on social media. There's a myth that, people aren't posting as much on social media. They are posting just as much, but they're choosing to post in much more localized communities and groups. And as we'll go on to later in the course, this will impact your social media strategy, your social selling strategy, because you need to get to a position where you're engaging with your prospects in a personal one-to-one way rather than the public broadcast messages. So just to recap that social media landscape, this is the big pie chart. Most conversations are taking place using dark social rather than public social. So let's break into the big meta uses for social media. So at the brand level, we won't be focusing on this in this course, but I wanted to give you an overview of what use value is for social media at the brand level. There's obviously social media marketing, which is the broad application of paid and other social media tools to boost brand voice on social media. There's corporate communications, so it's how you actually use social media to increase the stakeholder engagement and increase sentiment amongst your brand. There's obviously a recruitment focus for social media as well. LinkedIn Recruiter and other tools are fantastic ways to actually find talent. And then obviously there's customer care as well. So social media has a big utility now for brands if they are trying to deal with customers. And Twitter is a fantastic way, and Facebook has a really quite immersive and detailed suite of solutions to help brands engage their customers online at scale. We won't be going into this in this course, but I thought it was useful for you to understand this. We'll be focusing on much more in this course are the personal applications for social media. So there's 3 essential pillars as to kind of the value of social media for personal branding. That is a personal branding element, number 1, which is a big branding piece, how you represent yourself online. The social selling piece, number 2, which is what we're going to be focusing on throughout this course. And the third one is employee advocacy. So how are you using the power of the crowd in terms of your team to amplify content on social media? This course will touch on all 3 elements. You could argue that these are all 3 encompassing of one thing, but of course, because this is a social selling course, we'll be focusing most of our time on the social selling piece, helping you use social media to increase your personal brand and ultimately close more business. So what is social selling? Social selling is a process of building rapport with your buyers on social. That's it. It's not a really dramatic, complicated explanation of what social selling is, but this course is essentially going to help you find, engage, and ultimately convert your prospects on social media. Now, the process of this is quite detailed. It does sound simple on the surface, just like golf does, but under the hood, it is more complicated than that. So this is the definition of social selling, and this is what we'll be using throughout the training to base all of our work on. So where does social selling sit when we are trying to define what it is in comparison between the old way of selling to the new way of selling? Well, as you can see on the left-hand side in this graph, we have the old model of sales, which is essentially comprised of 3 things. Lots of cold calling, lots of sales demos, and lots of qualifying of leads. So this is the old model. And what we mean by that is that essentially people would be spending most of their time in the past just doing volume plays. So contacting as many people as possible, getting on the phone, cold calling, smiling and dialing. And then through this process of just stumbling around in the dark, and it's not incredibly targeted, you will find people that are interested. So it's all about the volume. The more phone activity you're doing, the more qualified leads you'll get, because quite simply, you're just striking out more in the dark. However, times are changing, and social media reflects the modern way of doing sales. It's not to say that cold calling doesn't work. Cold calling does work, but it's way less efficient. What's more efficient now is using the modern method of sales, which comprises of the social networks, educating and finally engaging your audience. So social networks is obviously social media. It's having the knowledge and desire and expertise to go on LinkedIn and go on Twitter and Facebook and actually engage with your prospects and actually bring them into the buying journey at a much earlier stage than what you would have been used to traditionally as a sales professional. It's about engaging them in meaningful content and for a consistent period of time, and educating them as well. And these 3 things combine to create what we call the new sales model. So traditionally in the past, sales professionals would have been the sole arbiter of knowledge. So you would go to a car dealership, and the first time you would speak to someone would be the salesperson. They would take you through the brochure, and then you would leave with a lot of the knowledge being given by the sales professional. That's now changing. Consumers are getting smarter and more informed, and they're actually making a lot more of their buying decisions before they even speak to sales teams. So it's our job to put sales professionals earlier in the sales journey so they have a part to play in that education piece. So when it comes to converting them, the prospect feels much more acquainted with the person and the brand, and therefore they're more likely to convert into a deal. And on this note, with social media, particularly B2B and social selling, people ultimately buy from people. When you speak about sales, you often talk about brands and stuff, but really it's individuals you buy from. I know for a fact that when I buy things for our organization, I buy from the individuals. I know their names, I know their emails, I speak to them on the phone. It's much more about the personal engagement you have with individuals. And social selling at its core is about really nurturing and developing this. So it's about building rapport with your buyers, so actually really understanding their needs and getting down into the weeds to what they actually want to hear about. It's about maintaining relationships with existing clients. So it's not just about going out and getting new business. It's about maintaining your old business and actually spending time to engage with your clients' content, because people put content out there on LinkedIn and beyond. Believe me, people want people to engage with it. And if you're seen to be someone who's actually taking the time to engage with content and actually add meaningful comments, conversations, then you're going to increase your retention of your client base. And then obviously there's demonstrating and turn the culture of a company. So social selling done at scale can really help create a positive culture for your organization on LinkedIn. When you do this with 10, 15, 20 people and you're creating content which is meaningful to your stakeholders, you're also engaging with content as well, you can create a really positive wall of noise around your brand. And then finally, it's showing that you're a human. We spend so much time online now and digital, and people do crave that human authenticity. And social selling is about not being afraid to show that human side of your personality. And we'll go into this later on when we break down the content sections, that being human is really important part of social selling. Showing some insecurities, showing some challenges that you have with your working life can really break that wall between the digital and the real world. And here are the 10 laws of professional social. So these are 10 kind of laws we've defined, distilling down kind of what we've learned throughout the years into 10 clear laws. And this section, if you didn't do any more of the course, if you got bored of the course and you wanted to switch off right away, you didn't want to break down content, you take these lessons and learn them, then you'll be going somewhere on LinkedIn. So the first one is being authentic. This is so important, particularly today. People don't want or expect you to present a completely polished version of yourself on social media. They don't want that. People want to see the human side of your personality I spoke about earlier on. That's the first law, be authentic. The second law is give value to get value. Have to be aware that social media is a bartering process, particularly LinkedIn. If you are just broadcasting sales messages, you will not get anywhere. You have to build a well of goodwill and value. You do that through giving great content and insights out. So sales professionals need to take that amazing information which is in their brain, out of their brain and onto LinkedIn. The process of how you do that we'll explain in the course. So we'll break down how you actually communicate good content. It's really important to understand that you have to bring value to the table before you get value out of LinkedIn itself. So if you're just looking for a quick fix, you want to sort of cold mail blast 1,000 people, you might get 1 or 2 leads, but it's a scorched earth policy. Believe me, when we first started a business, we tried it. It doesn't work over the long haul. You have to build long-term value and integrity into your networks to get value from social selling. The third thing is listening and learning. So it's really important to listen and learn. And what we mean by this is listen to your prospects, listen to your stakeholders, try and understand what their key problems are. And in sales, we're really good at this because we're always trying to do analysis. When we're doing a sales process, we ask questions. Sales professionals are perfect for this. You understand your prospects, but listen to them on LinkedIn and learn. Engage with their content. Spend just as much time engaging with their content as you would producing your own. The third thing is understand the platform. So LinkedIn is a nuanced platform. It is not the easiest platform to use, and that's why you're doing this course. But if you understand the platform, then you have a much greater chance of amplifying your content to the right people at the right time. And the fifth law is tell a story. So narratives, human narratives have stood the test of time because we respond well to stories. We'll break down how you do this in the course at a later date, but you need to have a narrative structure to your content, otherwise it will fall flat. And then it's be varied in the content. So we'll go into this later on about your content variation. So you have to be varied in your content. You can't just do one thing all the time. And you have to be doing articles, videos. You have to do text posts. You have to do live streaming if you can. Be varied and mix it up. And the seventh is work together as a team. We'll break down how you do this with using your team to amplify your content. Your team members should be supporting you in your social selling efforts. It shouldn't be a complete competition. I'm getting more engagement. You should use each other's network to promote each other's content. Number 8, have an opinion. So don't be afraid of being slightly contrarian. If your opinion is not completely the mainstream around a topic, then say it. People don't want all the answers on LinkedIn. What's just as valuable on particularly social media content is not just having the answers, but kind of working out the mechanics of how you came to the conclusion you came to. People want to understand those decision-making processes. So if you have an opinion, it's a slightly different way of looking at things. Don't be afraid of expressing it, because we find that often is the best form of content. And then number 9 is avoid religion and current affairs. Now, I sometimes personally speak about politics. So this is not a hard and fast rule, but when we're speaking about social selling and we're speaking about LinkedIn, it's usually best if we avoid these topics, just because it's just The risk reward play, if you think about it, it just isn't worth it. This is a personal preference, but we wouldn't recommend talking about religion, politics, and current affairs. Stick to your personal stories, stick to your professional narratives, and try not to make it too political, particularly on LinkedIn. Number 10, measure results and improve. We'll be breaking down how you do this throughout the course, but it's really important you understand how to measure and improve your social selling, because then you can actually tweak things and actually can make amendments, because you'll learn through producing content over time what's working and what isn't working. So these are the 10 laws of professional social media. If you memorize them, you'll be doing a really good service to yourself, particularly as we go around the course, because the course here will be touching on all these elements at different times. So these are the 10 laws of professional social media. Print them off, stick them on the wall, memorize them, because they'll be coming into play a lot more on the course.